Russia strikes Ukraine with a barrage of Shahed drones and cruise missiles earlier this morning. One of the targets was the hydroelectric dam around Kyiv. Now, it was hit, as you can see, burning. Not conclusive what areas were hit and how badly at the moment. We do know the dam hasn't burst, as you can pretty much see from here. That would have been catastrophic, but Russia is aiming to take out Ukraine's energy infrastructure, as they have tried to do in the past. The battle over who can destroy each other's energy facilities first. Now, if we can look at this map here, you can see where that facility is. Now, if that dam bursts, you can see a lot of areas, a lot of towns, villages that would be wiped out. That would affect a massive area of Ukraine, not to mention the fact, the energy infrastructure in Ukraine is already at breaking point after several years now of war, and Russia have previously struck their energy infrastructure, causing mass blackouts, rationing of power. That has been a big problem for Ukraine. Now, obviously, Ukraine's trying to hit the Russian oil facilities. Their largest oil refinery went up, but overall, that would massively affect Russia. It will, slow the process down. They'll have to, put other initiatives into place, but it's not going to affect Russia in the same way this is going to affect Ukraine. And they really need to better understand how they can defend these facilities through air defense, possibly getting more from Western countries, but also just generally how they can protect them and, maybe distribute their energy infrastructure better so it's harder to hit. Having centralized massive hubs is always a large, juicy target for the Russians to hit. Likewise, the Ukrainians have been striking inside Russia. This is around 40 kilometers inside Russia. They were hitting, going for an airbase, but unfortunately, one of them went off strain, hit an apartment block. There has been a report of a few injuries, but no fatalities. I guess not all attacks go as planned. As you've seen there, apartment building was struck. No reports for any fatalities, a few injuries. The Russians are saying they shot all the drones down. The Ukrainians are saying some got through. The Tu-95MS is the strategic bomber. The Russians desperately need this to operate their long-range missions. Now, they are very old aircraft, around 70-year-old now, early 50s they were built, so very, very, very old aircraft. But they have been upgraded massively by the Russians. It's one of their bits of kit they've not really changed in a long time, unlike a lot of the drone technology they've really enhanced. This keeps on moving now. The Bear, as it's called, often seen flying over Europe and international airspace where countries around Europe are scrambling the fighters to go and see what it's up to. Often hear it poking about over the north of the UK. So, yeah, Russia would be lost without them, and Ukraine would have a good victory if they could knock them out. They've tried to hit many Russian air bases over the last couple of weeks, months now. There's been numerous strikes on bases in Crimea and other areas. They have been successful to a degree, hitting hangars and damaging some aircraft, and mainly going after the ammunition storage, though if they don't have the ammo, they can't fly the aircraft. So we'll wait for more data to see if anything significant was hit after this. And here we see the Russian air defense of Pantsir S1 on top of that stack there, firing at Ukrainian drones. This is said to be near Moscow, so different tactics from Ukraine going straight after the capital of Russia. A lot of drones flying each way. Very light, very inexpensive, very potent weapons, and cheap. So here we go. Both sides are using them. This is the new phase of war. What can each side do to counteract this? The electronic warfare isn't quite there yet to stop them, so it's using expensive missiles at the moment. And as previously mentioned, in Proletask, in the Rostov region where Ukraine struck the Russian oil refinery, the largest they have, burning for 9 days now, although that is starting to simmer out, just basically a shell of what it was at the moment. But this is, again, a massive blow for the Russians to a degree, as I said before. This isn't going to cripple the Russian oil industry or cripple their infrastructure, but it will slow it down. Obviously, Ukraine can only hit so many targets in the west of Russia. They can't obviously get central and eastern really, although we have seen some examples of drones getting all the way to Moscow. Now, if we move over to the Kursk region of Russia, the Ukrainian offensive has been going gangbusters. They're really pushing the Russians back. Although that has slowed in the last 3 or 4 days to, they are still taking villages, but not at that fast pace anymore. But here we see the Russian defences are getting built. This is going to be very interesting to see how they man these, how they, try and stop the Ukrainians. They're building them like southwest of the nuclear power plant in Kursk. That's around 40 kilometers away from the Ukrainian positions currently. So they desperately want to protect that. Like, I'm sure none of us want to see a fight going on right near a nuclear power plant. That would not be good news for anyone. So the Russians are building these defenses, and as you can see, they're substantial. These will be well-built defenses. We've seen them start to build them over a period of time. But the big thing is, will the Ukrainians just try and bypass them? Will they try and go head-on against them, which very unlikely with the manpower Ukraine has. They really couldn't expend the manpower on something like that. But as we've seen in Donetsk, the defences don't always work. The Russians have overwhelmed the Ukrainian defences there and largely bypassed them where they've needed to, in the same way Ukraine has bypassed some of the towns in the Kursk Oblast when they've found it too hard to take them, just gone around them and just basically cut all the supply roads off and just starve them out. In the Pokrovsk area of the Donetsk Oblast, here we see a Russian drone going after a Ukrainian Bradley. Now, this is obviously an inexpensive drone against an expensive Bradley, but we don't see what gets hit because it stops. And if we look at the map, you can see Russia has taken Novopodorivka, and now that is another town fallen to the Russians. This continual assault by the Russians, this slow march taking town after town. The Ukrainians obviously thought the special military operation in Kursk was going to remove some Russian soldiers and units and sent to Kursk, but that hasn't materialized in a large way. Just merely small piecemeal units have been moved around and shuffled around, because obviously Russia knew that's what Ukraine's aim here was. Now, again, as you can see, going towards Pokrovsk, this is going to be a problem for the Ukrainians. This whole entire area is going to be, or could be, encircled by the Russians if they keep pushing and pushing. That's a large amount of land, and obviously Pokrovsk, the large crossroads hub that the Ukraine are desperately trying to defend, because that's their major defenses in the area. But as you can see, the blue highlighted the defensive areas of Ukraine. A lot of them have been swallowed up or bypassed. So, as I said, with the Russian ones in Kursk, defenses don't always stop units. They can go around them or overwhelm them. The Russians have enough people to chuck at them and chuck armor at them to try and destroy them and push on through. So it'd be interesting to see how far the Russians get and if they reach Pokrovsk and if they stop there, or will that be a resting point for this campaign by the Russians in Donetsk? And if you've made it this far to the very end of this short video for YouTube standards, give me a subscribe and we'll see what we can do. I'm going to chuck out some shorts, different news items. This won't be just a Ukraine only channel, but we'll see what we can focus on and what fits the YouTube bar. Obviously, talking for things for a long time, not all subjects need that. So we'll see how we go, but yeah, I'm here.